Welcome to episode 5 of Three Men and a Book, the podcast about all things reading and parenting fails. We've got Susannah Lloyd, author of Here Be Dragons, This Book Can Read Your Mind, and the amazing The Terribly Friendly Fox with us tonight. Hi, Susannah. Thank you so much for coming on with us.
Thank you for having me.
That's all right. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, sort of your family, and some of your books? But we'll just kick off with that.
So I live in Saltaire, which is in Bradford in West Yorkshire. And I've got 2 boys who are now 12 and 8, but were much smaller when I started doing my writing. What to say about me? I began writing picture books when I was about 5.
Oh, wow.
At my kitchen table, folding lots of pieces of paper together, get my felt tip pens out, and my mum did the stapling.
Do you remember your first book?
I've still got them. I could
you?
show you.
Oh,
I'd have to run upstairs and fetch. I've still
It's
got
here.
some of them.
Really talented at 5.
It did have a fox in it. It was called
really?
The Fox, the Wolf, and the Crow, and it did feature
amazing.
a fox and a wolf chasing a crow. They nearly catch it. Then something kind of switches. The crow becomes a baddie, steals a balloon from a little girl. It's quite a surreal story. But I wrote it was about 5, and
That's
I used to
amazing.
love doing that, writing lots of stories. And I really loved writing right up until I was about 12, when I had a wonderful English teacher who asked us all to fill in this massive notebook and write a whole book. And I wrote a murder mystery.
Wow.
Really into Agatha Christie on TV. Later I read them, but at that point. And I think after that, suddenly something went wrong, and I stopped writing for fun for about 28 years.
Really?
Too long. Really didn't write a thing.
No.
But when I was about to turn 40, something clicked, and I suddenly realised that I was supposed to be writing, and started writing. And one of the first things I wrote was The Terribly Friendly Fox.
Amazing.
I've been writing ever since.
We were talking about it just before you joined us, and we were all saying just how clever the book is.
Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing. We were really interested in just how did you come up with it? How did you come up with the idea?
So I'm trying to remember. I wrote a few notes down thinking, how did I? So I used to live in London, in Hackney and Stoke Newington, and this is a long time ago. We've been in Yorkshire for like 15 years, I think. And I used to pass by a pub called the Fox Reformed every day on my way to work and every day on my way back. And I used to, it was a really nice pub with golden red lettering. And I used to just be really struck and think, what would it be like to meet a reformed fox? And I'd daydream about it. And that was so long before I actually wrote the story, but I think it just planted the tiny seed of a story in my head of a fox that would arrive at a party and say he was reformed, but he wouldn't be reformed. And it all kind of spun from there. And I think there was all sorts of kind of different influences that came in. So once I started to daydream about it, I think what happens when you daydream is you do sort of all these tiny little bits of ingredients from different things you've loved in your life come in and whiz themselves up into some sort of new recipe. So when I was a child, I really loved, I've surrounded myself with books here thinking about it. Rosie's Walk by Hutchins. Don't know if you know this one.
No, I don't know that.
Oh, it's a real classic. A real classic. And in it, Rosie goes for a walk. And from the words, you'd not know anything bad was nearly happening to Rosie, or happening to this fox who's following her around. But actually, on every page, she goes around the pond, and the fox ends up in the pond. She goes through the beehives, over the haycocks, and at every different point, the fox gets thwarted, and then she just heads home. She's had a lovely day.
Amazing.
And so that was my first experience when I was really small, of a kind of dual narrative idea where the words and the pictures are telling a different story, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it when I was a child, and I loved all sorts of books like that. And I knew when I had this idea about a reformed fox that I wanted it to be a book like that, where there was something in between the words and the pictures for the reader to make their own story or make their own conclusions. So I was hoping to write something like that. I think, what else came to mind? I really wanted to have some sort of, well, I do have a bit of a dark sense of humour. So I think Terribly Friendly Fox is a bit of a sort of dark picture book. But that's me.
Definitely, there's no doubt.
It's fairly savage.
There is some gobbling creatures. Don't want no spoilers, but there may be some animals that have gobbled.
Some animals were hurt in the making of the book.
In the making of the book, some animals may have been gobbled. But I love kind of dark sense of humour, and I really loved that as a child. So I loved Not Now Bernard, where he gets eaten by the monster. What else? Miss Nelson is Missing, where they get children are so naughty that their teacher decides to pretend to be Miss Viola Swamp, who's a terrible witch-like teacher. But again, the reader would know that actually that is Miss Nelson. It's not really called Miss Viola Swamp. But it's really, again, kind of dark and human book. So I wanted that, and then I was thinking about one of the biggest things I think that influenced me was Beatrix Potter, because I loved Beatrix Potter growing up. Really, really, really loved her, and had all of like the whole set. And I think people they kind of misremember her. I think if people read her when they were small, they misremember her, or perhaps because of the way it's been represented on TV and stuff. They think of her as being quite sweet, or the stories being sweet, but they're really not. They're quite nature, tooth and claw. So I think in Benjamin Bunny, there's this line, old Mr. Bunny had no opinion of cats whatsoever. And it basically, from that line, you can tell he's just about to get set loose on this cat and attack it. And there's this other, see if I've made it. Got the whole Beatrix Potter here. The Tale of Ginger and Pickles. They're a dog and a cat, and they run a shop for little animals. And then Pickles really struggles with the mice.
Right.
He says, I cannot bear to see them going in and out the door with carrying their little parcels. But it would never do to eat our customers. They would leave us and go to Tabitha Twitchit's. And then Ginger replies, on the contrary, they would go nowhere. And it's so dark. They're talking about, well, we really can't eat our customers. We can't do that. But they want to. And I think I was trying to channel a bit of that, I think, into this story. Or at least it channeled itself.
No, so it's very funny you mentioned Beatrix Potter. My current Audible thing I'm listening to with Dougie every now and again is the complete Beatrix Potter. So I've been listening to some of those bits recently, and I was having a discussion. It's like Beatrix Potter was surprisingly dark. You know, the entire, when people think of the most is Peter Rabbit, but you come into that one with a detail of Peter's father dying, and it's the entire threat is over it to start with. In a pie, absolutely. And then the arch nemesis this entire time is this vegetable gardener, Mr. McGregor. But no, really, it's the man who killed your father and ate him. This is the overlying thing the entire time. I was actually discussing the fox in that as well, who is quite vicious. But if you were to believe the cartoons now, he must go hungry continuously.
Yes, I think she's really funny and dark like that, but people don't often remember. But like you say, if you listen to them or read them, then you'll see. But it's like they're all beautifully dressed. They've got little aprons and bonnets and gloves on, but it's all nature, tooth and claw, really.
And as a child, you miss a lot of that anyway. I mean, you're concentrating on what you want to listen to rather than, and as an adult, you listen to it back, you go, wait a second, I think they might be planning to kill each other. Or, you know, there's something going on. I mean, as you say, the difference between the illustrations and the words is it's always nice when the book has something for the adult reading it too.
Yes.
Massive. Yeah,
definitely.
That's just one thing that I really enjoy about reading it. Is every time I read it with my daughter tonight, and I noticed something new. So when he's playing hide and seek at the end, and some of the animals are hiding, and then he's peeping in the lamp or something, and I thought, oh, I've never noticed that before. And it's a little party hat he's wearing at the start. I just love little details like that.
Ellie Snowden is just such an incredible illustrator. She's sprinkled clues and little things everywhere, and I think that's right. Every time you look, there's another little teeny tiny thing to spot, which is what I love about it the most, I think, because the kids love doing that. They love to have something to do. And what I really love about that sort of dynamic of reading a text where the words and the pictures say something different is just thinking back to when I was a child. You know, when you're a kid, you get told adults know best pretty much all day long. Like, you hear a lot about it at school, adults telling you all about the world, and then your parents pretty keen on telling you about how much they know as well. But actually, children are the best observers in the world. I mean, they use their eyes and their ears, and they notice stuff that grown-ups are quite blind to, I think, often. So that's their real skill, and I think that's the nice dynamic. It's a bit mischievous, because actually, if you're reading a book like that to a child, the adult gets sort of stuck with the role of the words, which don't know what's going on, and they might be sort of a bit unreliable, they might be a bit misinformed, and the child really knows what's going on. And I used to love that feeling. Like, there's I think, where have I put it? The Cops and the Robbers by the Albergs. I don't know if you know that book from.
No, I don't know that.
What I'm enjoying so far is normally people say, have you heard of a certain book? And Aaron goes, oh yeah, and his eyes light up.
Oh,
I know. And now you can see him going, you're creating a whole new list for him. This is great.
I mean, really, from probably 1978. Wow. I'm harking back to all my childhood books, but at the end, you can see from there. Grandma Swag, one of the robbers, is still on the run, and they don't know where she is, and the words are saying, we've no idea what has happened to Grandma Swag, but any child will say, I can see her in the crowd, and she's stealing somebody's sausages out of their van. And I loved that. I loved the fact that the words didn't know, but I knew when I was being read that story, I knew about Grandma Swag. That was a really good feeling.
Yeah, it's funny actually, because I was on that same subject. I've read your book quite a few times to my daughter Ava, and I do story time every single night. And actually, I missed one, and Caroline did it, and she asked for the scratchy book with the farts. And Caroline started reading it, and I think just because she read the words, she didn't pay any attention. She said, I just didn't quite get what happened. And I said, well, didn't you see his like waistband expanding and whatever? And she said, oh yeah, he didn't do much weight. So actually, when I do it, I hold the book up with the pictures, and we do it, Ava and I do it together. But obviously, Caroline has just gone and just read the words, and I think
she's gone on autopilot.
Yeah, absolutely. And she's gesturing to me now. And but basically, it's amazing how well it's written, and like you say, that the words say something completely different to the illustrations. And before you jumped on the call, we were discussing it, and just said it's amazing actually that the illustrations and the words go so well together. You could almost misjudge whether the illustrations or the text came first. It could go either way, and I think that's lovely. I think that's really, really nice. But I think that the partnership there is so good, because she's completely got what you wanted and what you're trying to achieve.
Very much. I think she came from a really similar sort of place, because when you do a picture book, you don't really tend to meet until after it's finished, which is totally the opposite of what people imagine it would be like. I mean, but you can send like illustration notes saying, but they can only really focus on what has to be there. So certain things, like certain clues had to be there. I would say, for example, his belly is gradually growing, for example, or there might be feathers here. But then Ellie just brought huge new element to it. So the transformation of Gerald from the beginning, where she'd done him so charming and fluffy and really wouldn't hurt a fly, and very, very gradually she shifted him to the end where he's all snaggle-toothed, he's got these dastardly eyebrows, he's just looking such a scoundrel. And she'd managed to just slowly build him from one sort of fox into another, and in the middle there's this, I remember getting the picture sent over to me and just gasping, be so happy, so delighted, because in the middle he's doing a magic trick, he's doing one of his disappearing tricks, sleight of hand, and she'd given him a shadow behind him, shadow of a wild wolf. The way she's had his, I don't know if you spotted that one, the way his shadow falls on the wall, it doesn't look like Gerald, it looks like a very wild wolf with wild
Oh yeah.
She just had so many amazing details like that, just brought him to life. But I think we were on the same page, because as I said, I really loved Agatha Christie, and that sort of kind of murder mystery, and there is an element of that in this, because I loved those sort of, used to watch a lot of those on TV where they were always set at a glamorous party. And when I saw Lady Agatha, who are named in honour of Agatha Christie, Lady Agatha the Squirrel, I thought, oh God, look, her costume looks exactly like sort of thing that they would have worn on there. And then I got to kind of ask Ellie about it afterwards. She said, yeah, that was what her inspiration was, watching those sorts of costume drama Agatha Christie's on the TV. We both agreed Lady Agatha would be like a young Maggie Smith, perhaps, something like that. But she's absolutely brilliant, and the colours that she picked, the red and the
it's quite different, I would say, for a picture book in that respect. I remember when I first picked it up, I found it just by accident in Waterstones. I went into my wife shopping and I couldn't stand it any longer, so I'm just going to go and look at some books. And I remember going into Waterstones and I remember picking it up and I just thought, I'm just going to have a quick read of this. And I just remember just like, whoa, this is something different. We're getting this one. I was like there with Molly. It's like, you don't have a choice. We're getting this one.
Makes me very happy to hear.
Honestly, it's really, really good. I absolutely love it. It's one of those, I'm a teacher and obviously I've read it I teach year 2 at the moment, so I've read it to them, but also I would read it with year 6, with older children, because there's so much in there.
I think all my books, I think, are at the older end of picture book, but I am a huge proponent of the idea that you'll never ever outgrow picture books. That is the hill I am going to die on. I'm just like, you are never too old. And I do feel like, I wish in a way more teachers felt like you, and they'd say, okay, year 5 and 6 we'll do picture books. There's so many incredible picture books that kids get so much from. But I think for some reason in our culture we've got this idea that it's something you outgrow, and if you don't need to see the pictures to read the words, then they have to go. I just don't feel that way at all. I just think books should carry on having pictures in. Why not? And picture books in particular shouldn't be age limited.
That's something we've talked about on the podcast before, with this sort of misconception that even adults outgrowing children's books, and actually I absolutely love them. I could read them all the time, and I think there's so much in there, and especially with a book like this, that you'll be laughing at something probably completely different to your child when you're reading it, because there's so much in there. It's absolutely brilliant, I've got to say.
It might be a bit too short to read as an adult on an ongoing basis. I think that's probably the only negative I have there, is that normally I like my books to last more than a minute of speed reading.
You have to read it again then when you get to the end.
Yeah, you have to.
Maybe I won't need the book soon enough. I just better tell you what it says.
When you were writing this, did you have someone in mind when you were writing? You know, the main character, the host, the little mouse with his little bow tie. Did you have someone in mind?
Oh, a person in mind.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't know, but I have thought that he would sound a bit like maybe Alan Bennett or something. I don't know. Yeah, maybe the voice of Alan Bennett. I have thought that afterwards when I was thinking. I had a little daydream one day of like who would be the voice.
We were talking about this before you came on, and both Aaron, I don't know what Chris, I didn't get to ask you, but we all kind of put on this kind of well-to-do posh voice, and I just think it's hilarious. And we were laughing about it says, you know, several of the elderly rabbits fainted and Mr. Wilberforce hid in the trifle. And I just thought it's just incredible. And it makes me laugh when I read it to Ava. I can't stop reading it. And she's like looking at me thinking, what are you doing? And I just think actually it's so funny. Because
that's
I picture
me
him as
putting
this
my
kind of
favourite things in, because trifle is actually my favourite.
Right, okay.
My favourite food. So that's how that ended up in there. I would say, yeah, I didn't have anyone in particular in mind, but I will tell you that Ellie Snowden said when she was drawing up all sorts of versions of how Gerald might look or how he would dress, because that's the sort of thing that wouldn't be in illustration instructions, like what's he wearing. I think I did probably say he has flowers and a hat, but she started off with him kind of reasonable height compared to the other animals, but then decided he needed to kind of be a bit like an outsider and a bit taller than them. And he became more and more sort of lanky and more and more like he had to bend over to see them. And she based that on Stephen Merchant.
Oh, really?
Okay.
So she used pictures of Stephen Merchant to work out how Gerald would stand.
Oh, amazing.
Which worked really well. He's a really tall man, I think. Really.
He is, yeah. Gigantic.
So she thought that he's kind of bending his knees and leaning over to try and reach down to talk to the mouse.
Did you see any of the earlier illustrations or revisions? Is that do you ever wonder how they would have panned out had it kind of continued in that style, or you know, or that being a short gentleman instead?
I think he already looked like that when I first saw him. So I think there's a long period of time when Ellie would be just kind of playing around. And I think that's the case with illustration and with writing. There's so much playing around with things, trying things out, finding things don't work and trying something else before you kind of find something and you think, yeah, that's it. But yeah, occasionally they would come back and forth like sketches, and I was just always really, really happy because it was coming to life, which is my dream, you know, to see.
Yeah.
So how long did it actually take you to write then? Is it multiple drafts, or was it just
This is so long ago, I can't remember exactly how many drafts there would have been, but yes, a lot of drafts. And so when I talk to children in schools about the writing process, I think one of the things I wish I'd known when I was younger, when I was 12 and when I kind of stopped writing for fun, I think one of the reasons was I thought, and I really did think this, I thought that stories were supposed to just come out right first time, and that's how they did it. Somebody who wrote my favourite book, they'd have just sat down and written it. And now I know how silly that sounds, but it's such an incredible thing to know that they don't. And it's very liberating because you can do 20 drafts if you need to get where you want to go. And I think actually one of the defining moments for me was I don't know if you know the Seven Stories Museum in Newcastle that they put on lots of wonderful exhibitions about picture books. And they put on an exhibition in Bradford. They came down to Bradford because they're normally based in Newcastle, and did an exhibition about the Gruffalo. And this was around about the time I was wondering whether I should start writing. And there were all sorts of drafts of sketches and revisions and characters that got completely changed. And I was just absolutely enthralled to it. And I realised that actually, no, stories do not come out right the first time. And it was a great thing for me because now I know, the first thing I write isn't going to be the thing that's the final story. So yes, quite a lot of, gosh, I would find it really hard to remember how long. I think that writing the draft is probably the shorter bit, but the daydreaming to come up with the actual story takes a long time. Like I say, that was over years and years of me wondering about what a reformed fox might be like.
I think it's brilliant. It was a really great story.
I know you've talked about sort of a lot of books that had an influence on you already, but do you have one book that sort of changed everything for you or really inspired you, whether that's in childhood or later on in life?
Gosh, I don't think there's one book in particular, but there were lots of books that I remember from childhood that that give me a sort of, you had the reason I loved them, I think, was you got a feeling from them that the person writing them was having a really, really good time writing them, or the person illustrating as well, that they were having a bit of a ball making it. So I've got loads of books like that, all again quite old. So like this is one of my favourites, How Tom Beat Captain Ajork and His Wild Sportsman, and his hired sportsman, sorry. By Russell Hoban and Quentin Blake, which I must have read this book 2 trillion times in my lifetime, and I love it the same every time. There's a old who wears an iron hat, and she took no nonsense from anyone. Where she walked, the flowers drooped, and when she sang, the trees all shivered. And Quentin Blake's drawn with shivering trees, and I just love that sort of sense of humour. I could tell they were having a wonderful time making that book. So that one has really stuck with me, because I could read that today and it feels new and fresh to me. And I love also John Yeoman, who also made lots of books with Quentin Blake, like The Wild Washerwomen, about some washerwomen who go crazy and run amok. And I also really love James Marshall, who did the Georgia Martha book, Hippos who were best friends, Georgia Martha. And again, I could read those books over and over and over again, and I will never tire of them. They're so funny and they're so silly, and you could tell that he just had a blast writing them and drawing them. So I think I'd say that those ones, probably that sort of book, really influenced me. And also, Shrek I've picked out. William Steig, he was having a real blast writing. And then, such a horrible character, Shrek. Again, I think the film of Shrek, very different to the actual story. They took some of the dark edges off.
Oh, really?
He's really, really horrible.
Sense of theme.
Story.
Yeah, there's no friendly donkey.
But I really loved that book. So I think those sorts of stories really shaped how I know that when I'm having a good time writing, that does come through, I think, hopefully, the other side in the reading.
Okay. So one of the things we're really trying to do at Let's Go Read is we're trying to encourage families to spend time sharing books together. Do you have any sort of top tips for engaging children in reading, whether this is something that worked for you as a parent or in school visits, or just generally sort of engaging children?
Oh, let me think. Well, I think, as with all these things, drawing is probably very similar. I think if you not just show your kid that you enjoy it yourself, but you really do, and they can see you enjoying it yourself, then they will enjoy it with you. So I think kind of thinking about reading together and them knowing that you're having a really lovely time is really important. I think it's such a wonderful thing, because it has been my favourite time of the day is bedtime story time. I just have loved that so much, and I will be so sad when I'm kind of looking back, going, oh, I can't do that anymore. I just love bedtime story, and I just think, making sure that those times are not rushed in between times, but you've got loads of time for them, so that they know you're there to cuddle up and enjoy a story together.
So what is the sort of reading routine then in your house? Do you have something that you always do with the children, or?
So we were all, myself and my husband would always take it in turns to do bedtime story. So with our youngest, he's doing bedtime story now. So we would both, well, now he's reading chapter books, so he can read a chapter book to himself. But I guess a bit along what I was saying before, I think just because you can read by yourself doesn't mean that you should always read by yourself. So I mean, I just feel like it's been, I don't know, without sounding too sentimental about it, but I will sound sentimental about it. I feel amazing that I've been able to go to Narnia with my kids, or I've been with the borrowers under the floorboards with my kids, and I've been in Tom's Midnight Garden, and we've done it together rather than, here's a good book, I liked that one, why don't you read it? But we're having that experience together, and I just feel like that's wonderful. But as I say, I shall be so sad. I'll have to grab other people's children, and I shall carry on, I guess, reading people's stories. But I really enjoy that experience of experiencing a story together. So that would be an important thing, making a long time for bedtime, so it's not like rushed, and making sure. So for example, now with our youngest, we would both have a chapter book on the go, so that you're not skipping a chapter and you don't know what's happened in between. So he's got 2 books on the go, and then he's got another one that he reads. So we've got lots of books on the go at any one time.
Amazing. That's good. I think that's great. And just going back on touching to what you just said there about, you've been under the floorboards with your kids reading, and you shared those experiences. How does it feel knowing that families reading to their small ones are actually reading your books?
Oh, it feels really wonderful. That just is the best feeling, really the best feeling. That was my dream, so I'm really, really happy that is a reality, that somebody would be reading that story, and enjoying that story, hopefully. I mean, I always said, I think with book writing, so many things are totally out of your hands, will your book sell trillions, will your book sell a few? But I always thought, and I still stand by this, that I just wanted to know that my book would be somebody's favorite story. That's my kind of judge of how if I've been successful or not. So if someone does tell me it's their favorite story, then I'm so like, that's me happy. Very happy.
Well, I can tell you, it's definitely one of my favourite stories.
Oh, thank you.
Book-wise, it is.
No, I think it's definitely one of my favourites as well. And Ava loves it. But like I say, it's the scratchy book with the fox.
Scratchy book,
It's great. But it must be an incredible feeling to know that actually, your books are on children's bookshelves, and that actually at bedtime that's part of the routine. I'll go and get that, or in the daytime, whatever. But it must be an incredible feeling.
It
must
is.
be absolutely exceptional.
It's a lovely feeling.
We need to throw one random question into the mix that came about last night when we did another podcast. And we asked someone what the weirdest question that they've been asked. And it was, what's your favourite Disney princess? And we just thought it would be quite fun just to throw it in randomly on every podcast that we do, because it was such a bizarre question.
Gosh.
Random, I know.
I'm
glad you're taking it seriously as well.
You're
taking it incredibly seriously, because we're going to judge you on who it is.
Oh, you've judged on it. I'd probably say, I don't know if she counts as a princess. Snow, she does, doesn't she? Snow White. I think it would be Snow White.
Absolutely.
I love Snow White.
Yeah, good call.
But
as random as it is.
I genuinely speaking grew up with lots of well, I know Disney has changed now, but lots of
Yeah.
Disney princesses that needed rescuing.
Yeah.
So in my latest book, I put in a damsel in distress who rescues the knight rather than the other way around, because I think
Oh,
it's
amazing.
a bit of an impulse in me to go to reverse things. But I know that Disney themselves are trying to do that these days.
Oh, really? Well, I'm glad you've beaten to
They're
it.
not all waiting to be rescued. But I do love Snow White. Yeah, I'll go
Great
with
one.
that one.
Is there a strange question that you've been asked yourself while doing schools, or why like schools? I hope adults don't ask you strange questions other than Mark asking what Disney princess you are.
Oh, I don't know if it's strange questions, but I love the fact that children, especially say a year 2 child, the difference between a question and just telling you something about themselves is just so blurred. But I really love that. So I'll just be like, does anyone have any questions? And they'll be like, my aunt has a cat. Well, you know, I love that.
Yeah.
They're just
Oh, amazing.
yeah, will tell you anything. I don't know if I had any strange questions.
I guess one of the one from the other day, well, wasn't it? Strange may not be the right word, but certainly memorable. And it would be, they were asked, when are you going to stop writing? So are there any memorable sayings? Oh, well, I think we'd all question it, really. When are you going to stop doing that thing that you do? Oh, never is the answer.
We've all got a mortgage to pay. No, that is a savage question, to be fair.
That's yeah, I don't think I'd survive that question.
No.
Not try any of us would.
No. What a great question. But yeah, no, it's funny. We were just, it was such a random question about the Disney princess thing. We just thought it was hysterical, so we thought we were just going to include it every time, just catch everyone off guard. Yeah. But I don't know where it would go. I don't know actually where that question was going to go from that child. I hope it was a child. They didn't say it was an adult, did they? Yeah, no, fantastic. And one thing we always like to discuss as well is about parenting fails. Obviously, it's three dads who share stories all the time about things that we failed at with our children. And yeah, we'd like to open that question out to you.
Oh my word! I just to confess everything I've messed up.
One will do. One will do.
One will do.
Don't commit yourself.
Too many to mention. I could ask my children, so they would surely come up with millions of parenting fails. Oh, I made a cake the other day and completely forgot to put flour in it. I don't know if that even counts.
Oh wow!
It's not going to traumatize them.
I think that's just a life fail.
But it was a life. Yeah, it was a life fail.
But did you make them eat it? Because that'd have been a parent fail.
No, it was more of a cake soup than a cake.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. Considered. We all considered.
I remember.
But I think that was me getting very distracted. I was too busy, but yeah, no, I have massively parented fail on. I think school trips where I forgot to send the spending money. It's been held against me.
I was
classic.
The cake talk has just got me thinking back to. I know we talk about parenting fails, but my own mother did a massive fail once where it was my brother's, I think, 30th birthday or whatever, and she actually, for whatever reason, she still loves to make a cake every year, and she asked him, what would you like? He was like, oh, go on, a red velvet cake. So bless her, we go out for this really nice meal, and she's obviously spent hours on this cake. It's absolutely massive. It's huge. It comes out, and and luckily I was being polite and let everyone else have a piece first. And the first person started to eat it, and they were like, all I can taste is garlic. And for whatever reason, she put it in the fridge, and garlic was at the bottom, and it just got fused with it.
No! Garlic velvet cake.
Yeah. So I was like, it just made me think of it. Sorry, I just suddenly.
That beats my cake soup.
I think the other one's worse, Aaron. Your poor mum making you and Kelly a cake and switching the two around.
Oh god, yeah. My mum's got it. Sorry, bless her. She'll probably listen to this and quit. But
poor Sue.
You're going to lose a fan. You're going to lose a podcast listener now.
Yeah. And yeah, we came back from honeymoon. My wife is gluten free, so we were really careful all honeymoon. You know, did 2 weeks, had a fantastic time. Come back, my mum very sweetly said, "Oh, I've made you a coffee cake," and my wife was very pleased. She was like, "Oh, you know, I'm fed up of dieting, you know, from the wedding. I'm just gonna plow into this." And she started eating it, and she was like, "Aaron, it doesn't. I'm not sure on this." I was like, "Oh no, it'd be fine." And my mum was there, so yeah, it's definitely gluten free. And then it ended up with my wife being very sick throughout the night, and it's like, "Oh no, what has mother done now?" And then what actually transpired is that she made an identical cake for my brother, but got them mixed up. So she made one with obviously gluten-free flour and then one without, and then completely messed it up. So
Now
yeah.
this sounds awfully like a murder plot to me.
I hope it's inspired a book. That'd be amazing.
2 cakes.
A highly reformed mother-in-law.
Oh, brilliant. That story got me. I know it's happened a long time ago, and bless her, your wife wasn't very well at all. But you can't write that sort of stuff happening, can you? The old switcheroo.
Well, you'd do them both gluten-free, wouldn't you? But never mind.
You see, this is how our podcasts go. We talk about books and reading, and it just goes into random stuff that only the 3 of us will laugh at.
Yeah.
And then we just upset our only listener.
Yeah.
My my next book coming out in September features several cakes. So it sounds right up your street. 2 cats and several cakes. I won't tell you any more than that.
So that wasn't a leading question. I didn't settle that up purely just to plug the book.
And they're all delicious. I think they're full of gluten, probably. But that is coming out in September. It's called Oh Monty.
Oh, great! Look forward to seeing that.
Gregory.
Great, amazing. Did you want to talk about the recent success in America while we have you here? Because I'm sure that we're all excited to know.
We're only one day in.
Exactly, you cracked it.
Yeah, I've got another couple of books out. One's called This Book Can Read Your Mind, which is out in the UK already and has just come out in America with Jacob Grant, which is the world's first and only mind reading book. Amazing. Fully functional.
What a claim. What a claim.
But it's very sensitive to silliness. So readers do have to be very careful with that book. Very.
Okay.
We're trusting readers that they will be sensible when they're reading that book. But it's unfortunately has the fatal flaw is it's very sensitive to silliness. And
you can't read it, Mark. You've got no chance.
Game over for me.
Explosions may happen.
Oh dear. And put the house insurance up.
Yeah, exactly. And Here Be Dragons with Paddy Donnelly, which came out in February, just in lockdown. I feel like because we've come out, bookshops have just opened. I feel in a way like it's just emerging into the world now because bookshops have only been open for, is it like a week or something like that?
Yeah.
So me and Paddy are very excited that Here Be Dragons is now, people can buy it in an actual real life bookshop. And that is about a knight who sets off on a quest for a dragon. He wants to find one and battle it, but he doesn't have a lot of luck, or so he thinks.
It does look very good.
Leaving it there. I'm looking forward to reading that.
Yeah.
I think you'll like it.
I'm looking forward to have my mind read as well by a book, world first.
Do you be sensible now?
I feel sorry for the book. I feel completely sorry for the book, to be honest.
Well, we'll see what happens.
It's chaos. There's chaos in it. Absolute chaos. So this is like a swan. Here, all fine. Go inside, paddling like hell. No, brilliant. Thank you so much for your time. It's been really lovely talking to you and hearing all about your books and your epic cake fails. We wish you all the best.
Will go down in history.
Absolutely, and we wish you all the best with with the launch and everything, and success in America. And fingers crossed that that's going to go large over there.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Have a lovely evening.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.